Hey guys, welcome to Lather Talk. This is Jon. It's been a while since we had an episode with just me and Gerard, so today we're going to have a discussion about the ethics of flipping. Now, the way we're defining flipping for the conversation today is just the selling of any shaving related item that's significantly marked up from the original price. We hope you enjoy the conversation, and now onto the episode.
Hot take, flipping, okay? If you can sell a Wolfman for $2,000, all the power to you.
I don't know how to respond because I totally agree. I totally agree.
So a lot of people online are on multiple, whether it's forums, Reddit, Facebook, etc. A lot of them will have a sort of BST, buy, sell, trade. And depending on which one you go to, you will find hardware and software. Some of it is very common. Some of it is very rare. Some of it, people didn't even know that, why would you sell this? Because it's so rare, you might as well keep it. And so what happens? Like in any market, you will have a person buy something and flip it at a ridiculous profit. Or what are the ethics of flipping, if that? And so for me, I'm not a flipper. I don't have anything that's significant, that's worth, enough for me to make a crazy profit. But do I understand why people would do so? Yeah, because they can. We talked about it on one of our early episodes on, is there a certain price point that an artisan will charge before people say, no, that's too much, right? And I think that some artisans, will do it to maintain, I guess, a fair balance between, making their profit and over just, being a budget brand or what have you. But then you had mentioned, some places that just charge ridiculous amounts of money for their products. And in the end, I could be mad, that a place may want to sell something for hundreds of dollars, but if people are buying them, then I don't care, right? Like that's my take on that. The same kind of goes for flipping. Now, we'll use, I don't know how you, because I mentioned the Wolfman at the beginning, but I don't own a Wolfman, I just know about their perceived value, their rarity. That's really what pushes it, right? Supply and demand in its purest form. Yeah. Wolfman razor, costs around 350, 400. That's the MSRP, right? Because they are such in not just like, minimal quantity, but almost, they're just like, at this point, just legendary in kind of the hype around them. Mm-hmm. People are flipping them at just such crazy profits, right? Not just twice as much, not just $600-800, but going up $1,500, close to $2,000. Now here's the thing: if I'm from ethical standpoint, Wolfman's not getting any of that money. They're getting zero. Mm-hmm. Okay. So can I say that I'm really supporting an artisan if I'm willing to purchase a piece of hardware or whatever it may be, any item for for a ridiculous profit that that artisan will never see. Okay.
Well, I think if you're buying from a flipper, right, in this scenario, it's not necessarily about supporting the artisan, right? It's getting the thing that you want or the thing that is unobtainium, if we want to call it that. I think we have to keep in mind too that for Wolfman, for Varlet, for hand-tied knots, brushes, and I think even for Declaration, right, that these, you know, the prices that flippers could get eventually made these artisans raise the prices for exactly that reason you said. Like, oh, okay, if it's so common on the secondhand market that this thing goes $100 or more over the original MSRP, then obviously that product is underpriced. I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. And they rose the you raise the prices, and I don't think there's any less demand for those for the three that I mentioned at the very least.
Yeah, I think at what point though we can look at like the other pieces of hardware out there too, right? But at what percentage of a markup is it, oh, this is too much already? I mean, I'll tell you right now, like, I guess the idea of ordering we'll just put it at $400 on the higher end. Sure. I know it can be, I know with the accessories, it can be much more.
Right.
But we'll say $400 for a razor. If I saw it, flipping and it was that rare for say 600, I'd be like, okay, I guess, I can justify that cost to me. And unless you just have a ridiculous bankroll, once you get into the low four figures, then I think it kind of begs the question, why do flippers do it? Because there is enough people out there that are willing to buy it. And it doesn't have to be that many people. It just has to be enough people. And so I think the same goes, you had mentioned Varlet. Is it Varlet or Varlet? And Declaration. And Declaration, I think Declaration I've just seen on, just offhand, because a typical Declaration brush, I think right now goes for $280 for some of the nicer pores, and then like if it's like unicorn bone or something like that, it might be like $250, $220. I don't recall, but just under 300. We'll say that.
Sure.
I know that he did an artisan feature with dogwood, and those brushes were priced at $309. Okay, but for the most part, just around that 300, 280 mark. We'll say that, and consistently like seeing older batches or people like hoarding them, and now they're selling them just a little bit more, but it's it's enough. Like maybe they're selling it for 300, 350, 375, right? Does that mean that Declaration is underpricing, their own stuff? And it would be easy to just say, yeah, it is. But now let's say you raise the price to 350, 375. Are you going to see people trying to flip it for 400? Or like it's just going to be like this game where they're just going to move the line of what is acceptable, and none of us are going to know what price is too much until we just tell ourselves, no, I'm not willing to pay that, second hand off a flipper for that.
Right. I mean, I think it's tricky, and I think my benefit if we had like a ringer for econ related things, but I think it's since Declaration is a pretty good example, we have to keep in mind though that with each batch there is a lot of love for certain batches, right? So that does command a higher price, because I think sometimes that it's even more important than as you mentioned, the pour, how attractive the handle is, right? If you get like a B1, B2, which is a batch 1, batch 2, not that thing's going to command, I don't know. I guess I'm not in the market for one of those, but I would imagine that would command maybe that $400 mark that you mentioned, maybe more if it's also an attractive handle, right? Um, I don't think either of us would be very surprised at seeing 400, 450. What is the kind of that 500? I guess is a threshold at this point because I don't know. In my head, 500 just like puts in a whole new ball game.
And then let's I guess be somewhat transparent, right? You and I are quite active both on Reddit, Instagram, on YouTube, specifically also in the IRC channel that Reddit hosts, right? And just the general vibe of people that are in there is that, like, hey, like, let's take care of our own. If, like, let's say I buy a brush at a certain rate and maybe it doesn't get a lot of love and someone else, in the room wants it, and I'm willing to either trade it to them, no deal, no problem, or give it to them at reasonable and usually less than what it would have cost new. Like the idea of flipping, like you wouldn't flip on your homies, you wouldn't just say, like, and things like that. And I'm sure there's probably similar vibes among the other communities on some of the other forums and BSTs that are out there, right? Do we get mad more that people are flipping, or is it more so that they're not part of, like, our social group? I don't know those. I don't know people on the other forums. Like, I'm kind of like I peek in, a few of them. I am not on Facebook at all. Are we just, are we more mad that, it's not us in that situation?
I think there's definitely a case to be made where you should not price gouge your own friends or family. However, at the same time, I know there are individuals out there in real life, not in shaving, just with things, right? Whether you're selling a car, you're selling some other kind of collectible or whatever, they just want to make as much as the market will allow. And you'll see that any buy, sell, trade forum, whether it be whatever social media platform, always has a rule where you do not comment on other people's prices, right? You shut your mouth, even if it is price gouging, because I think the underlying thought there is if this is something that you legitimately own, you can go ahead, price it whatever the hell you want. And the comment often seen, if it does arise where someone's like, man, that's priced way too high, the most common retort is the market will decide. And that's the bottom line. The market will decide. Now, if whether you want to say you're a savvy businessman or whatever, if you want something to sell, yeah, there might be that one white whale who will buy your Wolfman razor for $2,500. But more likely, I think what you're getting at, right, is the other hobbyists. What's a more, how much markup is more reasonable? But they're not wrong if they know that even if there's 2 or 3 people and you're in their circles and you could get $2,500 for a brand new Wolfman. Like you said, like go get paid.
Yeah, make your money.
Make your money. If you bought it, that's fine. I did want to add though that I think I haven't seen this distinction made, but there's something about, let's say there's a drop. Let's say there's a Wolfman drop. There's a brush drop from one of your favorite brush makers, right? I think you can be called out for dickery if you go and buy multiple, if the system allows, or if you just buy one for the express purpose of selling it. Like, I put a different category. Let's say, even if it's an anonymous person, they bought it, they used it, didn't care for it, and know they can get a good amount moving it on. I think that's a different category than I'm going to buy something out from other people.
Intent,
And then,
the intent of selling it at even just a slightly higher premium.
Yeah.
True. I would agree, like, that there's a distinction between that. uh, I have two younger brothers. They were very much into the shoe collecting game, and things like that. That stuff happens all the time, and some of it at very much either equal or just crazier cost than with wet shaving gear and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would see people at brick and mortar stores at 6 a.m. For a shoe drop, right? Or if it was like a place, like where they knew that they could like order it online or on the phone, they would have the phone number of the store, make the call, have their credit card ready, so they could charge on the credit card and do the shipping directly from that store, like the minute of opening. Mm-hmm. So it is not new. I do think, let's say you want to get a brush, we'll use that as an example, and your intent is to, let's say, I'll just use 300 as an example, and you want to sell it for like $350, $400. To me, it's like you could make $50 or $100 in, I don't know, you could make it easier. Like I think it's kind of silly in that case. It's not big enough for me personally to find it enticing to do. With that said, if it's in demand, it's in demand. And with like 99% certainty that this is going to sell at the price that you set for it, even with a markup, if you're price gouging people, I'm not a fan of it, right? Like, because I may be one of those people that wanted to get it for myself, and then you beat me out to it. And you have bad intentions as far as, what I guess, if you want to call it that. But I think in the end, there's going to be, if you say the market will decide on what is too much, I would also say that the market is going to decide how artisans respond to it, whether that means just higher prices, whether that means even more limited, releases, or maybe they're just like not going to do anything, and maybe they'll do like 100 brushes. They'll just oversaturate the market. I don't know if that's really going to happen, but there's a few ways for, in the end, the artisan themselves to respond. And I don't know, what they want to do or what their take on it is. But I just, going back to it, I do think it's not healthy for the hobby if, potential profits that could have went to the artisan in the first place are going to flippers. That's, I think, the thing I'm not a fan of. And I say that having spoken with a few artisans and kind of getting to know them, there's probably some sort of it's not as just a simple, like, transaction, like, like you would go to Target or Walmart for, right? Like, a lot of times, especially if you're in the hobby like we are, we know the people making the product. We know that our dollars are going towards sustaining, their livelihood to a certain degree, if they do it full time, and things like that. So yeah, there's definitely a level of guilt if I feel like I'm cutting them short of something in a way. I also understand that most people don't know. They don't know these people. They're just like, oh, I just want it. I'll pay whatever I want for it. I'll buy it, and things like that too. So I'm probably just like too kind of like straightforward to it, because I'll put it on the record. Like, you won't see me like price gouge and flip something for like something really stupid. I don't have the time and effort, to do that.
Yeah, I think it overlaps into in, investment prospects, I guess, because I think you make a great point in that how much are you making on the markup? And yeah, other than the razors, right? Certain razors, whether they are Wolfman or maybe there are some popular razors that the artisans are no longer making them, right? That seems to be the biggest profit margin. I don't know. There aren't that many folks in wet shaving, and that might be the other thing too. It's a very close knit community, and most artisans will tell you they're not in it to make the money. It's a passion project. It's a side hustle, right? And if um, you can count on your hand, on one hand, the number of artisans that this is their main livelihood, and and if that were the case, they're hustling anyway, not hustling trickery, but they're like, they're pounding the pavement,
They're putting in
marketing,
the work. They're
putting in
putting
the
in the
work.
work
Yes,
to make their brand known, make their brand reputable,
right,
give themselves a good name.
right,
So
right. It seems when you're describing kind of your modus operandi, it's very altruistic as far as like supporting the artisan. And other than folks that I've met personally, and I am supporting them in featuring their products, using their products, etc. When it comes to these big ticket items that we're talking as far as razor and brushes, I don't know, that's not entering my mind. What I'm thinking more of is the actual performance of the product, which is dictating how much I want it, right?
true. No, absolutely. Right. So I wouldn't buy something. Like, yeah, having that altruistic, like I'm helping support, uh, a person I want to support is one thing. But if it's not a product I want, I'm not going to buy it just to support you. Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, the money, that I choose to spend as a consumer, I'm putting in the work. I'm doing my research, on there. And sometimes it's as simple as, yeah, the group likes this, like you probably will too. Okay, I'll buy it, right? But no, I definitely do think that performance of a product is key. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to put it just to buy it, just to make it look pretty on the shelf. I don't even have a shelf, like to begin with, right?
Right. It's not a trophy piece. Although, I mean, there's definitely people who I think we could term collectors, and that's fine, right? I mean, if that's to the degree that you're in the hobby, you and me have like over 20 brushes, and we both acknowledge is that for any particular purpose other than liking different options? No, right? It's not a it's definitely not must have, but we just like variety and we enjoy it enough that we have over 20 brushes. Other people have 50, well, whatever. And other folks have a rotation of two or three, which
But
is
here's the thing about that as well, right? Like, using brushes and connecting it back to the our subject, is that I don't have any brush that I can flip for a profit. None of them are rare enough. None of them have that kind of like hype generated. I already bought them because like half of them look pretty, you know.
mhm.
And I spent like, overall, probably in the low hundreds, but I think none of my brushes cost more than $70. Most of the majority of them are much less than that.
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's kind of how it is. I mean, obviously, uh, having having recently used a couple of high-end brushes, specifically from Declaration, yeah, it's a huge difference. And I think, you know, when we did our episode, I hadn't used one yet, but I had the opportunity to borrow a couple, and it's definitely it's noticeable. Like for me, the performance was like clear from the beginning, and I totally understood. I think the first time I used one, the first one I used was a B8, and I knew right away, like, I get why people drop the money on it. And even to this day, I can't describe it. I can't really put it into words, because some people would ask, like, why would you spend $100 on that, or um, or any other like high-end brush, or a piece of hardware, right? My 34C, like, works just great. Why do I need to spend hundreds of dollars on a razor, or whatever? And the analogy that I've said so many times, but it'll be the first time I'm saying here on the podcast, it's like, some people just like driving like a Honda, a Toyota, perfectly, reasonable, does everything you needed to, reasonable cost. Some people, they're like, I want to live a little bit better life. I'm going to get the Mercedes. I'm going to get the BMW, right? Still drives, but you're spending a lot more, just whether it's the perception, whatever you have. And then there's some people that just want to flex, and they got the Rolls Royce, they got the Bentley, and that's, to me, the equivalent. And and I've never been in a Bentley or Rolls Royce, but I imagine you're just like, oh, so this is kind of like either the quality or just the feel of being in one. That's probably the equivalent in this small way of using like a high-end brush or a high-end razor or something along those lines. Absolutely, you don't have to do it, but it's great, and you totally understand, what, like, when you do it.
I think you might have used the car analogy one episode before.
Probably, and things like that.
Just
yeah.
I mean, I think it's a perfect analogy for whether we're talking about brushes or razors, right? Because it's just, sure, it can be the finest wood, it can be super high grade marine grade stainless steel, or whatever the case may be, but your pot metal razor that is, that has at least decent tolerances or whatever, it'll help you, with your shave.
To kind of, just reiterate or close, or however you want to go about it,
Yeah.
is what's the quote? It's like, it's the movie is just like, you can do it, but you're still an asshole, right? like if you're going in there with like bad intentions, then yeah, like, you're not going to win any fans, like you're not going to win my support, from that. I think if people just want to see like how far they can go, with certain items, I guess they can go for it, but they should be very much ready to read the ire of, the rest of the internet. I think that, when people, you had mentioned about how some places, they ban you for making comments in regards to the pricing of a product. And I don't know where I stand on that, because part of me wants to lean that, if you want to be ready to sell something at a high price, you should also be ready to hear from the people that have a problem with it. If you still want to go ahead and do that, go for it. That's still on you. We're all adults. We all make our own choices. So if that's what someone wants to do, then go for it. But yeah, I think in the end, I don't think it helps the hobby either in the long run, because it's ultimately what it does. It just, rather than just kind of enjoying, the products that are out there, we're now just like either arguing or commenting on things that just aren't particularly important. So Yeah, like it's always going to exist. I can tell you that it's not going it's not going away anytime soon. I don't even know if you've reached like peak ridiculousness, for something, but I do think that we can probably do better by, asking ourselves if it's something that just we personally want to support.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to agree with you. I think you have every right to price gouge and flip. However, if you are an owner of one of these high ticket items, you are most likely at least part of a very small niche group of hobbyists, and you're going to build yourself a reputation. And if you're okay with that, then fine, right? Then I mean, if that's the hill you want to die on, make it you better make it worth your while, because you're gonna get, you're definitely gonna develop this reputation for being a gouger if people know that you keep buying stuff out from under other folks, not even to keep it, just to flip it, right? I think a good chance of those potential buyers are going to remember that and go, and kind of turn the other way. I mean, it comes down to just, it's a selfish move, and if you can't own that, then don't do it, right? Because you're like, I want to make money. That's fine. Yeah, go for it. If you need to pay bills, you if that's how you want to do it, sure. But like you said, it's not benefiting the community. It's a selfish move. I don't know if there's more to be said about it than that. Thank you for listening to Lather Talk. You can find all the social media links for Gerard and myself in the show notes. If you enjoyed the episode, you can help us out by subscribing and leaving a 5-star review. We appreciate your time and support and hope to catch you next time.